Okay, so you guys have really outdone yourselves this time. This English pod lesson you sent. Well, on the surface, it seems like it's just about everyday English phrases, right? But wow, there's a whole lot more going on under the surface here. We're diving deep into some real relationship drama today.
I know. It's fascinating how such simple language can open up these huge questions about communication and expectations in relationships. It's like a little window into how we deal with conflict and try to understand each other.
Absolutely. And you know what really struck me? Just how relatable this scenario is. I mean, who hasn't been in Veronica's shoes at some point, waiting for someone who's incredibly late? The lesson doesn't even say how late Steven is, but Veronica's been at the restaurant for 3 hours, and she couldn't even get a hold of him.
Oh, that get a hold of phrase. It seems so basic, but think about it. How many times have you been frantically calling someone, getting more and more frustrated when they don't pick up? That feeling of being ignored, of your attempts at communication being blocked. And in this case, it's not just a friend you're trying to reach, it's your significant other, which adds another layer of hurt and worry.
Right. And then there's this added element of public embarrassment. I mean, picture Veronica sitting there alone in the restaurant, feeling like everyone's staring and wondering what's going on. She even says, "Do you have any idea how embarrassed I was?" It's clear that this is about way more than just inconvenience.
And that question, do you have any idea?
Mhm.
That's classic, isn't it? It's less about actually wanting information and more about expressing just how upset she is. Like,
Yeah.
wake up and realize how much you messed up.
Totally. And then Steven finally shows up, and instead of genuine remorse, he starts making excuses. But Veronica is having none of it. "I've heard it all before," she says, and you can practically hear the ice in her voice. It's like she's completely shut down any possibility of him explaining himself.
That phrase, I've heard it all before, it speaks volumes, doesn't it? It suggests a history of broken promises, of repeated offenses, of apologies that have lost all meaning. It's like she's saying, I don't trust your words anymore because your actions haven't matched them.
And then she reveals that this isn't just a one-time thing, it's the fifth time he stood her up in 2 weeks. Ouch. Talk about a gut punch. And this is where the core issue comes out, his priorities. "I'm tired of your job always coming first," she says. It's not just about being late. It's about feeling like she's not valued, like she's constantly coming second to his work.
Stood her up. It's such a powerful phrase because it implies a deliberate disregard for her feelings and time. And then tying it to priorities really highlights the underlying conflict. It's that classic struggle in relationships, isn't it? Balancing personal ambitions with the needs of your partner.
Right. And it's so interesting how the lesson defines priorities. It's those things in life that are very important, like family, work, health. But the real question here is, how do your actions reflect your priorities? Because Veronica clearly feels like she's not high enough on Steven's list.
Absolutely. It's not just about what you say you value, it's about where you invest your time and energy. Actions speak louder than words, especially in relationships.
And then comes the bombshell. Veronica says she needs to take a break from the relationship to think about where things are heading. That's heavy stuff.
Yeah, taking a break. I mean, we all know how that played out for Ross and Rachel, right?
Yeah.
It's like this relationship limbo full of uncertainty and potential heartbreak.
Exactly. And that phrase, "where things are heading," it just underscores that uncertainty. It suggests that Veronica's no longer confident about the future of their relationship, that she's questioning whether they're even on the same path anymore.
And it's interesting how the lesson contrasts that with Stephen's earlier statement. Things are going so well at work. There's this clear disconnect between their individual trajectories, and it's putting a huge strain on their connection.
So, to recap, we've got stood me up, being left high and dry, feeling unimportant. Then there's priorities, those things we truly value, which may or may not be reflected in our actions. And finally, heading the direction and future of the relationship, which Veronica's now questioning. It's amazing how these simple phrases can pack such an emotional punch.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder that language is so much more than just vocabulary and grammar. It's a tool for expressing emotions, for navigating complex relationships, for trying to make sense of ourselves and the world around us.
So true. And you know, even though this is presented as an English lesson, the themes it touches on are universal, aren't they? These feelings of embarrassment, frustration, the need to feel valued and prioritized, those resonate with everyone, regardless of language or culture.
Absolutely. Relationship conflicts and the desire for connection are part of the human experience. We all crave understanding, respect, and a sense of belonging. And while cultural norms might influence how we express these needs, the underlying emotions are often very similar.
So, for all of you listening out there, we encourage you to think about these phrases and how they might be used in your own language and cultural context. How would you express the feeling of being stood up or the importance of priorities in your relationships? It's a fascinating exercise in cross cultural communication.
And here's another thought to consider, taking a break. While this phrase is common in English, is it a concept that exists in other cultures? Do all cultures view temporary separation in the same way? Or are there different expectations and interpretations?
Wow, that's a great question. It really highlights how language and culture are so intertwined. And it's a reminder that even when we're learning a new language, we're also learning about a new way of seeing the world.
Exactly. And that's what makes language learning so enriching. It's not just about words and grammar. It's about expanding our understanding of different perspectives and ways of being.
So, huge thanks to all of you who sent us this English pod lesson. It really sparked a fascinating conversation. And for everyone listening, we hope this deep dive has given you some new insights into the complexities of language and relationships. Until next time, keep exploring.